Thank you very much indeed for inviting me here to Istanbul. It's my pleasure to be here. We hosted the ECO 2013 board meeting in Istanbul, and I said that if you invite me back, I'd be delighted to come. Next time, hopefully, no more than 6 years will elapse in that period. I'm going to address two things today, and they fall into two broad elements. The first is global trends in the PR world as I see them. And the second is, as we would call it, the challenge of ethical professionalism. And the perspective from which I do so comes with 12 years as Director General of the PRCA and 7 as Chief Executive of ECO, and also several years having taught in universities of Westminster and Richmond on ethics. So a few words about the PRCA and about ECO by way of context. PRCA was founded 50 years ago this year in London, and we are the world's largest PR association. We represent, and crucially, we regulate 30,000 PR practitioners in the UK. We're in 500 agencies and about 400 in-house communications teams like Visa, Vodafone, Procter & Gamble, and so on. 3 years ago, we opened an office in Dubai, creating PRCA Middle East and North Africa, covering another dozen countries. Last year, we opened in Singapore, creating PRCA Southeast Asia, covering that region as well. In Moscow last Thursday, we announced the creation of PRCA Russia, bringing together the associations there with myself as chairman. And next month, we will launch PRCA Latin America, based out of Buenos Aires. And for the last 7 years, as I say, we have managed ECO, the umbrella body for 41 PR associations in 66 countries and representing 3,000 agencies, of which IDA is a member, and we're delighted that you are. So that is the international footprint that gives me and us, I think, a pretty decent overview of the world market and of the ethical challenges that we all face within it. ECO does two main things apart from creating a global community. We have a summit every year, and we have an ECO World Report full of data. The summit this year is in Lisbon next month. One of the key issues it addresses is ethics. And my colleague Rob over there is the general manager of ECO, and I know we'll be delighted to see some of you in Lisbon if you have time. But the key annual publication is our World Report, now in its 15th year and published in conjunction with the Holmes Report. It analyses responses from ECO's agency heads about market trends. It collates global data, and it breaks the world down into 8 regional markets. It's available for free to download, and you can compare different years because they are also available for free to download. And the current 2019 survey is live at the moment, and if you have a moment to fill it in, I'd encourage you to do so, because the more practitioners we have fill it in, the more comprehensive it is. Now, differences exist between different parts of the world. I certainly know that because in the last week I've been in London, Moscow, Dubai, here, and I'm off to Paris at the coffee break. So I certainly see the differences in our world market. And there are differences between practice areas, different models, different specialisms, different sizes of agency and in-house team. But there are certain common trends and themes. The first one is optimism. So in every region of the world, agency heads are optimistic about the future. They see a growing market and they see growing opportunities for their companies. In every region too, they year on year expect to be more profitable than the year before. And given the very tempestuous economic and political times we have seen over the last decade, that is quite incredible. And these numbers have been consistent over the last 10 years, consistently optimistic, consistently profitable. Why is that? We identify 4 factors. The first one is that chief executives continue to increase their financial investment in their corporate reputation. So they're spending more on buying our services. Investor activism, and in particular social media transparency, there being nowhere left to hide, have intensified the focus not just on delivering good numbers, but on doing so with integrity and delivering good outcomes. And that's helped fuel a demand for senior counsel that our industry is providing. Second factor is that the blending of disciplines that we have seen over the last 15 years has been met by our industry with a willingness to diversify into other areas of practice. So our agility is proving to be our strength, and in particular our ability to own storytelling as a deliverable. The third factor is that marketing spend continues to migrate away from big budget advertising and towards more effective and focused PR activity. And that trend becomes more pronounced every year. So the decline of traditional print media is playing a significant, but not the whole part in it, but a significant part. And the final factor is seen in every part of our industry, is that PR is excellent at delivering digital. Every year we ask them, a clear majority of agency heads in every part of the world say that they are meeting client demand well. And encouragingly for our future, they say they're investing more in their own digital offering. So those are the good bits. So what are the challenges? The relationship between consultancies and clients has risen significantly over the last few years. The biggest single challenge an agency faces is clients being unwilling to commit sufficient funds, or being focused on the short term, or lacking an understanding of how PR works. And I think that's true all around the world, isn't it? And it's a worry. It relates clearly, in my view, to our inability to prove adequately our value. And that is driven by an underinvestment in evaluation. Until we prove the value that we deliver, we can't command the fees that we deserve. So in every region of the world, those saying that advertising value equivalents, AVEs, are their preferred method of evaluation has fallen. Great. It now stands at 8% around the world. But while AVEs as the preferred method go down and down every year, they were still used at some point in the last 12-month period by a majority of agency heads in the world. And when we ask why, agency heads tell us is not that they believe the numbers, is that their clients want the big numbers. But to be clear, AVEs tell us nothing but vanity. And they hold our industry back. That the sooner we abandon them and just refuse to give them to clients, the better. A very clear challenge is that of talent. So it is a paradox that although almost all regions around the world say they have a plentiful supply of talent, they all say that they have a really difficult time attracting it and retaining it. And at entry level, that is about salaries. And the talent issue has been absolutely persistent over the years. It challenges our ability to grow and to maximize our potential. I link it back very clearly to our underinvestment in evaluation. Until we prove the value of what we do, we can't charge the fees we deserve, and we can't recruit the people that we need. So our analysis of the numbers is therefore this: an industry filled with optimism about the future, driven by big trends that play to our strengths, with challenges, but I hope the determination to address them, growing bigger every year and more sophisticated. However, the numbers tell us only so much. So the challenge of ethics in an era of misinformation, as identified by your conference, is a critical one, perhaps the most critical one facing our industry. Because the power of PR has never been greater and grows greater every year, particularly with the growth of digital, it's how we manage that power that works. So 3 months ago, the European Communication Monitor annual survey was published. It's based on the responses of 2,700 PR leaders, predominantly in-house. And enhancing trust was the main challenge those 2,700 leaders identified. Respondents said that their target audiences vary very considerably in how much they trust them. 67% say senior executives trust us. 47% say influencers and bloggers trust us. 39% say journalists trust us. And 27% say the public trusts us. So the people paying the bills believe in the value and the integrity of what we do, and the people hearing our messages do not. And that seems to me to be a problem. At the PRCA in London, Dubai, Singapore, and at ECO all around the world, we call this the challenge of ethical professionalism, proving that practitioners are good at what they do, but that they use their skills in the pursuit of good as well. So to illustrate what I mean by that, I'm going to examine briefly a case study, the demise of Bell Pottinger in 2017, arguably one of the most famous PR firms in the world, a firm that no longer exists. And I questioned whether it was still topical to do so. And then in my flight from London to Moscow, as I turned over the New York Times, on page 2 was an article about Bell Pottinger, 2 years on. So I think it still has some resonance. If you Google Bell Pottinger PRCA, you will see 18,900 results. And those results relate to our expulsion of Bell Pottinger on September the 5th, 2017, and its collapse as a company 1 week later, with 250 people losing their jobs. And I relate this from a PRCA perspective, not an eco one, but it has lessons all around the world, and I relate it with no enjoyment at all, because the vast majority of those people had done nothing wrong. But Bell Pottinger's demise shows that public expectations of our industry are high, that social media means unethical behavior has nowhere to hide, that we need to embrace these developments, and that PR associations and practitioners need to meet their public responsibilities. If you do so, it will strengthen you. If you avoid those responsibilities, it will condemn you, in my view, to a spiral of irrelevance, stagnation, decline, and collapse. And that's what we saw with Bell Pottinger. So here is what happened. On the 3rd of July, 2017, a complaint was lodged with us in London by the Democratic Alliance, South Africa's main opposition party, based in South Africa, obviously. It alleged that Bell Pot's work in South Africa had been based around fake news and had exploited and created racial division and had led bluntly to the death of people in South Africa and to a worsening in the political and social structure of the country. Having gathered evidence, we had a formal hearing take place in London on the 18th of August with members of the Democratic Alliance cabinet and with barristers appearing on one side and with the management team and barristers of Bell Pottinger on the other. And the hearing lasted for about 8 hours. On September the 5th, after appeals and legal processes had been heard and gone through, we announced that Bell Pottinger was expelled with immediate effect. And I must say, as an aside, that we took those decisions with the greatest sense of responsibility. We had enormous pressure from both sides and enormous public pressure. There was a belief that because Bell Pottinger paid us a lot of money, and it did, sat on our board, and was arguably the most famous PR company in the world, and also that because the issues involved were so political and difficult, that we would clear Bell Pottinger. And we received a great deal of pressure based on that assumption. So I, for example, would receive daily videos of ways to be killed in South Africa. And people came round to my home in the middle of the night, and people came to take my children away. So we were under a great deal of pressure to do the right thing and to make the right ethical choice. And we did, and we expelled them. But the hearing, for example, was in a secret location. So we had quite a ridiculous level of stuff. This is not what you sign up to when you agree to run a PR membership body, really. But there are public expectations. Within 24 hours of the expulsion, 21 agencies had applied to join the PRCA. Within 48 hours, there were 121 articles in national and international press. So we were on the front page of the Financial Times in London 4 days in a row. There were 1,668 articles in other press, and we appeared in 23 TV news broadcasts. Within 7 days, Bell Pottinger no longer existed. Bellpot believed they could survive the scandal. They believed they could ride it out. And I understand one of their senior directors said it was a storm in a teacup. But within a week, it was bankrupt, doors were closed, and the directors had been pursued for very large amounts of money personally. Why did it close? Because that is the lesson that we can all learn from. Because clients ran away from it. They ran away in breach of their contracts. They simply dismissed them and said, we're not working with you any longer. They ran away from them publicly because they wanted to distance themselves from their former reputational advisors. We have said for years that a company's most valuable asset is its reputation. Well, Bell Pottinger, ironically, proved the truth of that belief, because when the reputation of a reputation management company collapsed, the company collapsed. It is the best case study proving the truth of what we have said for decades about the value and importance of reputation. The international reaction was equally positive. Richard Adelman called it a proud day for the industry and called for the industry globally to establish common standards. Around a dozen PR associations strengthened their codes. The reason we could launch PRC Russia last Thursday was because the Russians decided to have a very significant toughening up of their ethical code and introduced an ethical jury to take these matters very seriously, knowing that in the process of doing so, they would lose members initially, but that they wanted higher standards. After extensive consultation with our 41 association members, ECO published the Helsinki Declaration at our summit in 2017. And Sarah Leah is speaking after me. She might mention it, I don't know. But it was to set some common standards around the world, just basic things like working ethically, respecting the truth, never engaging in astroturfing, not circulating fake news. All things that had happened in the past in our industry, and let's be clear, sadly, still happen in our industry, but things that we need to take a stand on. And my firm belief is that taking a stand is good for all of us, both in the short term and in the long term. So finally, what lessons can we learn from the collapse of Bell Pottinger? I would say the first one is that practitioners welcome firm self-regulation. In an era of increasing transparency, professional, ethical practitioners expect to be held to high standards of transparency and accountability. We worried when we took action against Bell Pottinger that members would run away from us. They didn't do that. Secondly, so does the public. Public expectations have shifted dramatically in the past decade, both for our industry and in general. 10 years ago, Bell Pottinger would have survived. The headlines would have gone away. They would have had a bit of client damage. They would have maybe repositioned themselves slightly, or they might have doubled down and said, yeah, we're the people to go to if you've got tricky work to be done. And as I say, one of their senior directors believed that would be the case still. But this sheer volume of social media attack meant that it was impossible to escape it, that clients saw it daily and saw the massive pressure that was being put on one company. But 10 years ago, it would have survived. Social media makes that absolutely impossible now, and we all ought to learn from that, and it's a good thing. Another lesson is that it provides commercial advantage, being blunt. Our members are clear that with these increased and ever-increasing expectations, public, legislative, societal, those who refuse to sign up to self-regulation harm themselves commercially, and those who embrace it help themselves. And let's be clear, there will always be companies on the margins who do not wish to operate in an ethical manner. There was one company that resigned its membership of PRCA with the chairman telling me, I'm not going to let you expel me. And that said something about us. We'd let them in the first place, a mistake. But it said equally about them, that they couldn't stand up to our ethical standards. But they will increasingly be marginalised within our community. And parochially, it grows associations. We have grown roughly 10% a year. Every one of the last 12 years I've been running the PRCA. In the year we expelled Bell Pottinger, we grew by about a third. And that's important for all of us. So my belief is that tough regulation, tough self-regulation, is the right thing to do for our industry, both ethically and in our own interest, and in the interest of society as a whole. One final comment. Our PR world grows bigger, but also smaller every year. Bigger in terms of the numbers and value within it as our industry expands, smaller as we become increasingly connected. At events like this, for example, this is proof of it. And it's vital in that regard that we take the opportunity to address common issues together, and that's what ECO exists for. There truly are common issues around the world: attracting and retaining talent, proving the value that we bring, creating a more diverse workforce, addressing the gender pay gap, taking advantage of the blending of disciplines, addressing automation and artificial intelligence, meeting society's expectations, and proving that we are ethical. They are truly global challenges, and I genuinely believe we can address them best, particularly the challenge of ethics, if we address them together. And thank you very much indeed for giving me some of your time.